And welcome to the Stew with JT Brew. College football season is upon us. We are fired up. This is the college football preseason show where we're going to talk about over-unders, awards, kind of the crazy bets you can pick before the season starts. All that on and more here on the Stew with JT Brew on Fantasy and Frames. Stick with us. You're in the Stew now.
You up on trades and why you move, you ain't designed to lose. Find you jumping over seemingly nothing, racking up points, makes the game a little more fun to watch. Can drop release, we started with the mock draft and now we making a mockery of the leaderboard. Quite obviously not a scrub, so start an institute, make evaluations like a commissioner do. It's to the point your wife make you watch in a different room. Update your roster and pick and choose when you get some news. Not much that we enjoy more than sipping through sifting through new statistics to make it to our end zones through different routes. Universities, institutes, down to homies who click in groups. I introduce you to the Stew with JT Brew.
Hello and thanks for joining us here on the Stew with JT Brew. Benny D in the house, my guy. I can't believe it. College football is back. Gambling season is upon us. We are ready to go. College football. Some of these bets we're going to talk about tonight, you can get in throughout the year, but some of these other bets, you got to get in before the first game of the season starts. If you don't get in early, you're not going to get the odds, and some books take them off altogether once the season starts. So we're going to give you a little mix of everything here preseason. Make sure to hit us up. If you got any questions on a bet or something you like, you can always comment here. Always hit us up on Twitter, on the X. I'm at JT Orange. He's at B Dyer 8. So jump on there and check him out as well. Ask us questions wherever you like. You got anything that jumps up on during the show here, feel free to jump into those comments and hit us up, and we will answer what we can. Benny, it feels like a long summer. You know, baseball betting, you got the Olympics, you got a couple other things going on, but it gets rough. It's just not like college football season, is it?
No, it gets rough there. We had some Olympics. That was kind of fun. And, I actually did some bets with the Olympics and stuff that obviously only every 4 years you get to do some of that. But yeah, I go pretty silent there with the betting for a while because I'm just not a baseball bettor really. And, I'm pretty much just a football guy. I'll do a little basketball, a little NCAA when tournament time rolls around. But yeah, football season for the betting is by far my favorite. So we've been waiting all summer.
I know, it's great. And for anybody who's not in the know, I'm sure if you're watching the Gambling Show, you are in the know. We finally have a college football playoffs. Not 4 teams, not 8 teams, 12-team playoff. I don't know about you, but I am super pumped. I've been waiting for this for a while. I understand there's a good chance the high-end teams still come out on top, but at least you got to work for it, and hopefully we get a little less complaining about teams not making it in. There's always going to be those teams on the bubble like, oh, they should have made it, they shouldn't have made it, this and that. But I am super excited about the 12-team playoffs. We finally we're starting to be honest in this world. Gambling matters. Playoffs matter. All this stuff matters. NIL, players get paid. We're just finally being honest. Let's just all get on board and deal with it. As all the student athletes were taken away from their time in the classroom. What? You're lying. These guys are traveling all year.
Are they really going?
They're traveling all year. They're doing online classes constantly. They're having to go to study halls because they're on the road during the season. Let's stop acting like these guys just have a regular old every week. They show up to class from 8 to 5, and then that's not real world. We know it's not. So let's, we finally have given up on that notion. I'm here for it. I remember I think it was my freshman year at San Diego State, going out there and giving a speech about why college athletes should be paid. And now they finally are with the NIL deals. We got to, spread the love around. The NCAA's made plenty of money off these guys. And granted, they do get the scholarship, which we love. Scholarship does matter. Get your education, people. But share the wealth a little bit, right? I mean, I'm pumped. I can actually buy a player with his actual name on the jersey now. I love it.
Yeah,
As you can see on here, my Luther Burden season is going to be a big one. We're going to talk a lot about Luther Burden for Missouri wide receiver. I got a Luther Burden jersey online this year, and I'm so pumped about it. I'm like, I can actually get a real jersey with a real player's name on it.
Yep.
We couldn't even find jerseys when we were in high school. I was searching high and low to find a player's jersey. So I'm pumped about the changes. I know it's hard. Change is hard for everybody, but I'm loving the changes in college football. What do you think?
No, I like it. I've been waiting for an actual playoff for a long time, and I thought for sure they were going to go to 8, which made some sense because you'd have two teams get a bye week, and then you got the 4 teams got to play each other, and then so that seemed like a good setup, and I thought for sure. But when they said they were going with 12, I was pretty stoked. So we've kind of been waiting for a few years since they announced that. So we're finally here. This is going to be good, but. Yeah, I feel like if you're like you said, there are going to be some teams complain no matter what. But if you're the 13th team, it's like, come on, man, you could have, there's 12 chances to get in this thing now. So you really can't, you're not going to have too much to argue about, I don't think, if you get in there or don't get in there.
Yeah, exactly. There's going to be plenty of opportunity to get in there. One of my favorite bets, and we're going to start off with this. I was, looking around last couple of days trying to find some cool bets, some different bets. And one of the ones that popped up on my radar was DraftKings is doing a special right now. You can get in 24% boost. You can pick 4 out of the 12 teams to make the college football playoff, and you can parlay those together. And anyone who knows me and knows you, Benny, we love the parlay. We love
the parlay. it's just fun, you can not spend a lot, you can wager a smaller amount with a chance for a big payout, and if a few of them go, you get down to those last couple, and it's just fun, it's a good bet.
Absolutely. So this is what we're going to start the show off with. This is our college football bowl predictions, who we like to make the playoff here. Like I said, right now on DraftKings, 24% boost, a 4-team playoff maker. I've got a couple I'm throwing together here. Now, listen to us here and pay attention. We're not necessarily predicting everyone that's going to make the playoffs. Some of these are teams we actually think are going to make the playoffs, and sometimes we're throwing in a little kicker on something to really push that bet to maximize profit. So get in there. If you really like a team, feel free to jump in there and put that team in place of a team you don't like that may have been picked. I mean, just jump in there. Don't worry about it. We like to jump in, do a little bit of everything. Jamie jumping in here saying, hey, what's up, guys? Jamie, thanks for jumping on and watching the show. Appreciate it, man. Always good to have you here in the mix on Fantasy and Frames, as he is a Fantasy and Frames regular. So, Benny, when I was looking at these odds, kind of get things started off, I'm like everybody else. Some of these big dogs are going to make it. Not everybody's going to be an upset. Right now, Ohio State minus 650, Georgia minus 600. Obviously, people know me and you. We don't like to take those bets. I'm not laying 100. I'm not laying 650 to win $100. I'm just not doing it.
No,
I'm not doing it.
No.
So I think those teams are making the playoffs, but I got to sweeten the pot. So who can we mix with those two? If you want to take 2 of the favorites and put it in there and figure out how you can get into the playoffs and make a nice little money. So I'm gonna say 2 that I looked up and then have you jump in here. I've got Ohio State, Georgia. You can mix in Missouri out of the SEC at plus 175. And then if you add them in, and then you add in Utah at plus 200 out of the new Big 12. They used to be in the Pac-10, now in the Big 12, because each conference winner of the majors gets in. So, and then they also have one at-large berth for like one of the small schools that wins or is the highest ranked small school. So remember that here. You got to win your division. If you win your conference and get in, if you win your division, make your championship game, most likely you're in unless you got in with a really weird bad record. And then they're going to go through, and it's really going to be based on where you're ranked. But you can get in even if you're ranked lower in some of these divisions. So you remember every last year was real upset about Florida State. They had the injuries. They ended up not getting in. People were upset about it. Well, Florida State would be in this year. They would have won the ACC.
Yep.
They would have been in guaranteed. Liberty, who went undefeated last year, would have got in as well. So these are things to keep in mind when you're making this bet at the year. So here's what I like. I like the Ohio State and Georgia because they're two favorites, and I just think those teams are winning their conferences. I think they're in. So I want to figure out how I can make this a reasonable bet. I like Missouri at plus 175. Here's why I like them. They've really got 3 tough games on the schedule. Outside of those 3 tough games, they got Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Alabama. Outside of those 3 games, the schedule is very, very winnable. If they can go 10-2, if they can win one of those 3 tough games and finish 10-2, I think they're in. I think an SEC team that goes 10-2 gets in. 9-3, I think, is going to be very questionable. So even at 9-3, I think they could maybe make it. But if they go 9-3, Alabama goes 9-3, and Alabama beats them head-to-head, I think Alabama gets in over them. So this is where I'm at there. So this is a little bit longer odds at plus 175. But if I add them, and I think the Big 12 is wide open. I like Utah. Nice defense. Cam Rising's supposed to be coming back. If Utah gets it done in the new Big 12, they're at plus 200 right now. You put those 4 together, you're at over plus 1,000. Over plus 1,000. Now, another option, say you don't like Utah, just giving you a heads up on kind of what you can do. Say you don't like Utah, you're not 100% sure they're going to make it, or you're just real iffy. Another team I think is going to be a team in the mix is Notre Dame. Notre Dame's at minus 160 right now. Notre Dame, again, another team, only 3 even remotely difficult games on the schedule. If they go 10-2, I think they're in. You can't keep out a 10-2 Notre Dame team. It's just against college football history. It's if Notre Dame's even decent, they get in. So I think Notre Dame goes 10-2. I think they can win 2 out of those 3 tough games. If they get in and you substitute them out for Utah, you can still get that at plus 500. And I'm telling you people, this is without the boost. So you can still get that at plus 500. Those are some of the ones I like. Jump in there, add some teams, get crazy. 2 teams if you really want to go for the home run, the grand slam.
Mm-hmm.
Throw Liberty or Texas State in there. Liberty at plus 400, Texas State at plus 1,200. I think one of them can make it. Both those teams have very winnable schedules. Really 1 or 2 even up in the air games where they might not be favored all year. If they finish undefeated, one of those teams is getting in. So that one could get pretty crazy for you there. Benny, anyone else you like kind of piling this together to get this mix of this? Again, we're talking about playoffs. 4 teams on DraftKings right now has a bonus for a parlay, play 4 parlay, plus 24% on the bonus. Benny, who do you like 4 teams to possibly get in?
Okay, I'm with you 100% with Ohio State and Georgia. I think the SEC and the Big Ten are going to get 2 teams. They're both going to get 2 teams in.
I think at least 2 and maybe 3. I can see both teams getting 3 in. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you like Ohio State or if you like Oregon better, I think Oregon's probably getting in, if you look at their schedule. So those are 2 Big Ten teams that are probably getting in. So it just depends on how you want to mix and match those between the SEC and the Big Ten. But you might as well throw one of each conference in there to get those 2 in there. I'm with you on Notre Dame 100%. I think, all they got to do is be in the mix because it's Notre Dame. So they're going to get thrown in there. And I love your idea with Missouri. Utah's another great one. Like you said, the Big 12's wide open. There is a couple teams that are sneaky in the Big 12. I think Arizona could give people fits. So you could take a long shot with them, but you know me, I'm a Mountain West guy. I like watching the late games because I can actually sit down and watch them. So I'm all in on Boise State this year in the Mountain West. I think they're going to probably win their conference. I think they're favored in every game.
They're going to have one. The one toughie is week 2 against Oregon, but if they play that,
they got Oregon. That's right. Yep.
And they finish with only 1 loss, I think that's a team that's going to be in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're going to win their conference, and if like you said, they get 1 loss. I mean, they're probably getting in, and you can actually bet them just by themselves at plus 400 to make the playoff, which I actually did that. But you can substitute, like you said, if you want to throw Utah in there, but if you actually take Utah out and put in Boise State, you can get that same bet at a plus 797 for that 14 parlay. And then if you want to make it a 5-teamer and add Missouri, it's really getting wild, but you're at plus 2300 at that point. So, which, what the heck, you're gonna make a small bet. It's hopefully gonna get down to the wire at the end of the season, and it's fun. So I think that's a good idea by DraftKings to put that out there with the boost and everything. It's just a fun way to start the season and something you can follow for throughout the season.
Absolutely. And Ben, and if you guys aren't into parlays, which we know everybody's not into parlays, I would suggest getting on there and just looking. If there's a couple teams you like to straight up, like Ben said, you can get Boise State plus 400. Like I said, there's Utah, or the real nice numbers right now are Big 12, because that might be the most open conference.
Yeah.
So you can get some really nice numbers, because there's a good chance that only one team out of the Big 12 gets in, unless you have two teams that have just absolute fire seasons. There's a good chance only one team gets in. So if you have a team that you like to win the Big 12, that's a nice one to throw in there. Like I said, if you got one of those small schools that you think, because that was kind of the thing, was part of the deal was like, we can't leave out the small guy.
Yeah.
Whatever small school team that's not in the major four conferences, whatever team's the highest ranked team gets in. So that gives you a chance with like a Liberty, who went undefeated last year. They're going to be favored in every game they play this year. Texas State is another one that a lot of people are liking. They've got a tough road game at Appalachian State, but other than that, they're going to be favored in most of their games. So there's some of those teams out there that can make a move. So definitely jump on there, check out some of those odds, see if there's anything that kind of jumps out at you and does that. The thing I was going to look at, Benny, and this one I always think is kind of tough unless you really like a long shot. And I'll bring it up here for everyone to see, and that's national championship odds. So this year, I like making the Final Four over national championship winner. I'd rather take teams that are making the Final Four. That's just me personally, but here's some of the top odds as we're looking at it now to win the national title. So if you jump out here and look at this, is on FanDuel. Right now we got Georgia plus 280, Ohio State at plus 400. Then you got Oregon 650, 850 for Texas, Alabama 1,400, Ole Miss 1,400, Notre Dame 1,800, 2,000 for LSU, and then up and up and up from there. So I always think it's tough to take these teams early on unless you really feel good about a team. If I felt really, really good about Texas at like plus 850, or I felt really good about Bama or Notre Dame at plus 14, 1,800, maybe this is where I take them. But I typically don't jump on national championship bets before the season unless I'm taking a long shot. Because, again, these odds are going to go up and down throughout the year. Even if Georgia gets off to a nice start, everyone kind of likes Georgia. They're not going to get to minus money for a couple, 3, 4, 5 weeks into the season.
Yeah.
So I don't really jump on those unless I see something bigger. Kind of what's your philosophy on these national championship bets before the season?
Yeah, I usually don't. I mean, this is a little bit different now with this new playoff. I think it definitely changes things, because you're not going to see these teams match up until the Final Four, and you never know what kind of upset could happen. So it does make it a little different. But I'm not really a big preseason national championship better. I don't know. I think it's a tough bet to make unless there's like two clear cut like teams that are. I don't see that being the case though. This year, I think. Obviously they think Georgia is, pretty clear cut. They're going to probably be in the championship game based on a plus 260 or whatever to win the title. So that's pretty strong for a preseason national championship odds. But man, the rest of them, I don't know. These types of bets, I love the parlay we just talked about, because it's something you can get long odds on, and it just feels like you got a real chance at it. It's you're trying to get 4 out of 12 teams correct, and 2 of them you're throwing in there that are almost locks, so you're really just taking a little bit of a gamble on 2. So you never know with injuries, but Yeah, I don't know. To me, I'm with you though. If you're gonna do one of these, you might as well do it early. Your odds are gonna be better. Like you said, you're not gonna see teams with minus odds really until you get a few weeks in. So
Yeah, that's where I'm with you. Instead of taking the national teams to winner, I'd much rather be betting on these teams to make the playoffs.
yeah,
I really would for this year's. And I just brought it up here on FanDuel. A couple of the odds: Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Notre Dame. A lot of people loving Texas this year. The schedule is tough. The defense isn't as good. They're a team that slightly scares me in there about making, because I think the SEC is very tough. Obviously, adding Texas and Oklahoma this year to the mix. So, like I said, I'd almost rather grab a few of these teams that I kind of really like and throw them together with teams I think are definitely going to be in that aren't great odds. Because I'm not dropping minus 650 on Georgia, even though there's a great chance they make it. That's just not the type of bettor I am. I'm not going to take minus 650 on anything. To me, it's just not worth it on that. So those are the ones I kind of like. That's kind of where I'm leaning. So I'm jumping kind of into that. So we'll keep monitoring those and see. The only question with those, and the reason I brought it up here early, Ben, was I'm not for sure how long the books are going to keep these bets open.
Yeah.
So sometimes, I think, when you get to the NFL season, when you want to take certain like matchups, Super Bowl matchups to make the playoffs, a lot of times they'll only give you the bet at the beginning of the year. Once the season starts, man, they pull them. So
they take them down.
So that's why I'm saying jump on these early in case I don't know what the books will end up doing. If they will end up just adjusting odds and letting it go throughout the year or not. But that's why I'm looking at this right now as bets I want to make sure I'm getting in before the season starts here on Saturday. So let's jump into our second segment here. This is always one is a fan favorite. Everybody wants to always talk about it, and that's the Heisman race. The crazy thing about the Heisman is, man, the favorites have very rarely won the last couple of years. It seems like a guy is coming out of nowhere every year to be in the mix here. So this is another one, Benny. It's a little hard to jump in and take a Heisman favorite. Something I brought up in another podcast that I thought is just shows what kind of era we are in with the NIL and transferring. Dillon Gabriel is the favorite, and Oklahoma basically told him to go. They basically told him to leave. He goes to Oregon, and he's the Heisman favorite. Wild to me, man. Wild to me. Obviously, Carson Beck at plus 750 is second, as he's on the right now what many people consider the best team at Georgia. Quinn Ewers, if Texas can get there, and Ken Ewers is going to have a huge year, I can see the votes going heavily his way. I have to be honest. I am very hesitant about Will Howard at Ohio State. I think Ohio State's going to be really good. Right. I just don't know if Will Howard's going to be the show. They've got so many talented wide receivers and running backs. Their defense is great. I just don't think he's going to, even if he plays well, I just don't see him putting up the stats that he'll need to in order to get the Heisman.
Yeah. He's definitely not. I mean, he's a big kind of pocket passer type quarterback. I think he's like 6'5", 240.
Yeah, he's a big dude. He can run a little bit coming over from Kansas State.
Got a big arm. Yeah. But it's not, it's not what they've had for the last like 3 years at Ohio State. I mean, if you think about the guys they've had between Fields and, these guys are, the guys that are getting drafted in the first round of the NFL. I don't think we're going to see. Well, maybe we're wrong. Maybe Will Howard.
If he plays out of his mind, maybe we do see Howard, but he's not a guy people have talked about as that kind of stature QB. He's more of your RPO, QB here in college.
They do have crazy weapons at wide receiver still, though. They've got
everywhere.
I think it was like the third ranked wide receiving core in the country. So they've got guys. If he can get him the ball, he's going to put up some yards. Probably so, but yeah, I'm with you. I don't think I would bet a Will Howard to win a Heisman Trophy. I don't think he's just not going to be flashy enough,
Well, yeah, and here's the thing for me is Heisman stays up all year, so I'm
they're going to change
what a little bit is going to happen before it goes. So I'm going to wait on my Heisman bet. I put in a couple early just because I wanted real long odds on big odds. So I'm flipping down the list here. If you guys are watching it here on YouTube, I'm kind of going down the list. It's showing some guys we're at the plus 3,000 mark, plus 4,000. I'm going to show you who I have in there, and these are my two favorite long shot bets. And when I say long shot, I mean absolute long shot. Two wide receivers, Luther Burden for Missouri and Travis Hunter for Colorado. I'll tell you why I like these guys. We haven't seen a wide receiver since Devontae Smith at Alabama win the Heisman. He was the first wide receiver to win it since Desmond Howard in the 90s. So it is crazy hard to win the Heisman as a wide receiver. Now, here's how you do it.
Yeah.
Here's the recipe. And they're right now, Burton is plus 6,500, plus 6,000 for Hunter. Here's the recipe. Highlight. You either have to be in the national spotlight. Your team has to be in it to win the national title. Or you have to be good and put up insane highlight plays, which both these guys are highlight reels. And we've seen it, guys, where maybe the stats aren't the greatest in the world or they're not on the best team ever. If you put up crazy stats, especially highlight plays, it matters for the Heisman voters. It matters. Yeah. We've seen plenty of times where the guy with the best stats didn't win the Heisman. It was the guy that was the flashiest guy.
Especially a guy that plays both ways, like
Travis Hunter. Exactly. The fact that you get Hunter making pick sixes. Here's the thing. If Colorado goes 4-8, I don't think he has a shot. If Colorado goes 8-4, I don't think they have to necessarily even make the playoff. But if they go 8-4 and he is legit all over the field, making 70-yard touchdown catches, pick sixes, just a highlight reel after a highlight reel, guys love that. Charles Woodson is the last guy to play both ways, and he played way less offense than Hunter will play. That's where I could see Hunter playing.
Basically never came off the field last year. It was crazy. He ended up getting hurt because of the amount of plays. I mean, the dude was literally like a high school game, would play almost every snap of the game. So I don't know. I don't know if they can keep that pace up, but if he does, and they're going to get attention because it's Colorado and it's prime and that whole deal. But he's gonna make some wild plays. There's no doubt. The guy's a freak of an athlete, and I love that. That was actually the one guy I wrote down as my dark horse for the Heisman was Hunter, just because at plus 6,000, man. I mean, I feel like he's got a way better chance than some of these other guys ahead of him on this list, just because of what you just said. Yeah.
And here's my recipe of how Luther Burden wins it for Missouri. And now this is a long shot. Don't get me wrong. This is a homer pick by me. Luther Burden season.
It's pretty awesome.
But this is how Luther Burden wins it. He goes out. Missouri goes 11-1 or 10-2. Is in the SEC, either championship game, makes the playoffs, makes a run. And he has some monster games against Oklahoma, against Alabama. So say Missouri goes 11-1 and they win at Alabama, and Luther Burden puts on a show. Like absolutely goes out, balls out, 8 to 10 catches, 200 yards, 3 tutties with like a 70-yard screen pass. He breaks 5 people's ankles and scores. That highlight right there will do it. That's going to be the thing that will get him in the national picture. Missouri doesn't have to win the national title, but they have to be in the playoff, and he has to have big games against the big teams. So him putting up just big stats
and he'll have
isn't going to do it. He's going to have good stats. He's going to have a great year. I love him. Yeah. He's my wide receiver 1 in this class. I think he's a first-round pick. I think he's the first wide receiver off the board in the NFL draft next year. But how he does is he has to have some big games against Oklahoma and Alabama. Those games, Texas A&M, those are the games everybody's going to look at him for. Yep. If he has big games against them, he's going to be in the mix. If he doesn't, if he comes out and has like a 2-catch, 40 yards stinker against Bama at Bama, he's out. He's out. Yep. I'm telling you right now. But if he puts a big game up, he's going to be in the mix. And here's also how you are in the mix as a wideout. You have to be a sexier player than your quarterback. You just have to be a sexier pick. It's how Devontae Smith won it.
Yep.
No, Mac Jones had crazy stats, but Devontae Smith was a sexier pick than Mac Jones. And so Devontae Smith won it. I love Brady Cook. Brady Cook has come a long way from Missouri. He has been spectacular. Luther Burton's a much sexier pick than Brady Cook. That's how you can win as a wide receiver. You can't get outshined by your quarterback. That's the only thing kind of hurting Travis Hunter is the Shedeur Sanders. But I think because Hunter
that's
plays
true.
both ways, I think for Shedeur to be in the mix, they'd have to be in the playoffs. I just think that's the only way anyone would consider Shedeur. And I think he has a big season. I've gotten heat big time for this. People think he sucks. I still think he's the quarterback one in this class. I think he has a monster year. I don't know how good Colorado's going to be, but they're going to be in a ton of shootouts.
Yeah.
And he's going to throw the ball around a lot. But that's why I like Travis Hunter. Even though he has a sexy pick as a QB, he plays both ways. The highlight reel is what is going to get him. Those are the guys. If I'm taking a bet now, those are the guys I'm betting on. Because I'm taking long shots. Ollie Gordon at plus 7,500. If he can somehow put up a 2,000-yard season where he trucks 30 touchdowns, a la Barry Sanders type of year, I could see him winning it because I think Oklahoma State will be good enough. Again, I think because it's the playoffs, I think your team has to make the playoffs. If your team makes the playoffs, people are going to take you seriously. You don't necessarily have to win the national title to win the Heisman. Where in the years past, I thought if you didn't make the 14 playoff, you weren't even going to be in the mix for most people. No. Unless you were last year like Jane Daniels, where you had a good team, you were in the SEC, everybody saw you, and your stats were just so off the charts that they had to vote for you. That's the difference maker for me. There's a lot of good players I just think aren't going to put up the crazy stats that you're going to need in order to get anything.
I think Jaden Daniels was a long shot preseason.
He was a huge long shot. Huge long. He wasn't even in the top 15 or 20, if I remember, preseason last year. So, and here's the deal. Him, Joe Burrow, a bunch of the guys that have won it lately were guys that kind of came out of nowhere. So that's why I say it's hard to kind of necessarily bet on this early on because you just never know who's going to kind of come out of nowhere as you look down this list. But if I do take someone preseason, I'm taking one of those guys in the 3, 4, 5,000 range where I think they maybe can sneak up just a bit on that. So that's kind of where I'm looking at there. Ben, one of the other guys, and I'm not sure if I have it pulled up here for you guys, but another award that we talked about, and I'll see if I can find it, pull it up here as you're talking about it. But one of the other awards me and you both talked about that we kind of wanted to see a guy win, Doak Walker Award. Who's your Doak Walker Award winner?
So when you sent me your sheet, I saw we kind of had the same guy here, but. Yeah, I mean, again, this goes back to what I was talking about earlier with Boise State and their schedule and their team. I mean, they're gonna get this guy the ball a lot. So I think this Ashton Jeanty from Boise State is gonna, at plus 750 to win that is a pretty. I think he's got a shot for real to do it. The guy from Oklahoma you just mentioned is definitely gonna have a shot. Probably not as long odds either, but. Yeah, Boise's going to put up a lot of numbers this year, and he's going to probably score a lot of touchdowns if he stays healthy. That's another thing with these type of bets, with these awards. I mean, all of this is based on these guys staying healthy the whole season. If somebody gets hurt and they're out for 4 or 5 weeks, they're probably not going to, it's pretty much going to end your bet. But that's just the way it goes when you're betting, when you're betting futures on individual awards. But yeah, he's my guy this year. I think he's going to have a big year. So.
Yeah, I'm on GT. Ollie Gordon is the favorite right now. That's why I like GT at plus 750. I just think Boise State is going to give him the ball nonstop, and I think they're going to have a good record. He led the nation in yards from scrimmage last year at right around 160 yards a game. He came back to school for this reason. He wanted to blow up and show he should be a first round, or even if he's not a first round, one of the first running backs off the board in the NFL draft. So that's why I like him. I like the numbers there. One other one we'll talk about award-wise, Luther Burden III, Blitnikoff, top wide receiver. He's at plus 280. I like him to win it, but obviously not great odds at plus 280. My favorites in betting, we always talk about, because I'm a long shot guy. I want to take the odds I love. 2 guys I'm looking at to possibly win that award. Tez Johnson for Oregon at plus 1,200, and Emeka Buke at plus 400 for Ohio State. Ohio State has had unbelievable wide receivers lately. I think Obuke is going to show who he was 2 years ago before he had the injuries last season. And Marvin Harrison Jr. is gone, who won the award last year with Kyle McCord, who they ran out of town, and he only lost one game. So I think Will Howard, even if Will Howard isn't amazing, I think Obuke could still put up the stats to win the award. I think he's one of the top 5 wide receivers in the country. And I love anytime I can get a wide receiver who was the leading wideout on his team last year and his quarterback's the favorite to win the Heisman, and I can get him at plus 1,200. You sold me. Yeah. I'm in on Tez Johnson. Yeah. I think he could have a big year. Obviously, people are going to talk Evan Stewart transferring there from Texas A&M to Oregon. He's the big name guy. He's the big prospect everybody loves. But Tez Johnson knows that system, and he's been there. I could see Tez Johnson statistically being the man there. And if Dalen Gabriel has a year we think he's going to, Tez Johnson, at those odds, I really like those odds for him at plus 1,200.
Yeah, do you have the odds pulled up? Because I couldn't find
I was just looking because they had them up earlier today, and I'm not sure if there's been some changes because I just pulled up both sites to see where they had those odds as we were going here, and a few of them came off the board. So I looked at the Doak Walker. Oh, here we go. I just found Doak Walker. Let me pull that up and show everybody real quick. I was having a problem finding for a minute. Let me do this real quick.
Bolitnikoff, I couldn't find.
Here we go, Benny. I'm pulling them up here for you. So if we go to the Bolitnikoff, right now we got Luther Burden at plus 280, Evan Stewart from Oregon's plus 650, Ted McMillan, who I absolutely love for Arizona, is at 850.
That's the guy I had. 1,200. I think I saw him at 800. So McMillan, man, he's sneaky there because the Big 12 in Arizona, they are just straight up going to chuck the ball. I mean, they're going to throw it. Their quarterback, Fafita, he came in week 4 last year, and I think they covered every game from week 4 on. I think the next 7 games, they didn't win every one. I think they won like 5 out of 7. But that kid, I mean, he kind of reminds me of Kyler Murray, just running around, chucking the ball around. And McMillan had 90 catches and 1,400 yards in like a 9-game stretch when that kid took over at quarterback. So, I mean, that's kind of a sneaky one at plus 850, I think. I mean, he'd have to have, because it's the Big 12, he'd have to have an absolute monster season. He'd have to probably lead the entire nation in receiving yards, but he could do it. I mean, it could happen.
He's got that ability. He's got that ability. There's a lot of people that have him in the number 1 wide receiver in next year's NFL draft. I've got Burden ahead of him. I got him too, but I think they're totally different receivers. So I think they could be. I mean, I think Tet's much more of a Mike Evans style receiver in that he's big, tall. He can run downfield, go up and get the ball. I think Luther Burden is much more your slot type of receiver. He's much more your Deebo Samuels type of guy where you're going to give him the ball and let him make plays just with his athletic ability. But I love Ted McMillan there. And Arizona, like you said, Arizona's going to have to score. They're going to have to score.
They're going to sling it.
So I really like Tet there. Like I said, you see their Tez Johnson's there. The other guy, Xavier Strepo from Miami at plus 1,400. And then, like I said, Emeka Egbuka, who people have kind of forgotten about just because of the injury last year, plus 1,400. Man, I wouldn't mind throwing a little bit of money on almost any of these guys, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And then just since we talked about it, and I didn't have it pulled up, my bad there, the Doak Walker, Ollie Gordon, the second from Oklahoma State, is the favorite at plus 340. Quinshon Judkins, Ohio State, he's the transfer from Ole Miss. He's at plus 430. I love Judkins, but he's going to split time in the backfield with Travion Henderson. So will he get enough carries to make the play? JT is a plus 750. That's why I really like him. I think a nice dark horse is Damian Martinez. If Florida can pull it together, if Miami can pull it together, and they can win the ACC with Cam Ward, who I like a lot, transferring from Washington State, Damian Martinez transferring from Oregon State. If that team can figure out how to get all these transfers to play together and they can win the ACC and make the playoff, I think Damian Martinez is in the mix. I love him. He's at plus 1,200. Omarion Hampton, plus 1,500. I like him a ton. I just don't think his team is good enough. I don't think he's going to be able to put up enough yards and have enough highlight plays to win it, even though I think he's a really good player. And then Jay Knott for California is also at plus 1,500. I like Jay Knott. I think he's got a really nice NFL profile. I just don't think anyone from Cal, unless they somehow have a magical season that I don't see coming, I just don't think that he'll get enough looks from people. I mean, you've got to go over and above if your team's 500 or under. I mean, you got to really play
They'd have to
out of your mind for teams to like take guys like that.
Yeah, and some of that would have to happen on big stage too. I mean, it would have to be a crazy set of circumstances probably for him, but yeah,
I got one of my crazy bets, and before I answer this last one, this is kind of like a crazy bet I found, but before I answer it, we've got a couple people asking some questions that just kind of missed a few things in the show. So I'm going to jump back in here and answer a couple comments. We kind of got flying along here. We've got a couple over-under questions in the mix. We're going to get to over-unders next segment coming right up. So we'll answer those. So if you ask those questions in the chat, I will get to those here just shortly. I'm trying to keep all the over-under, all the stuff together right now. So we had a question here from the Sports Addict asked, what were the 4 teams to make the playoffs? So we kind of jumped around, talked about a few different teams. The first one I brought up, and Jamie on the spot, I had Ohio State, Georgia, Missouri, Utah as a nice little combo. That combo got you over plus 1,000. I think it was plus 151 total. I'd have to look at it again just to make sure, but it was definitely plus over 1,000. Ben talked about if you don't like Utah, Boise State is a nice little throw in at plus 400 to kind of really crank those odds. I said if you want to do something a little less odds, a high and a little better friendly move, you could take out Utah and put in Notre Dame. Notre Dame's at minus 160, so that would actually make Ohio State, Georgia, Missouri, Notre Dame would be plus 500. So you could jump in there at the 14 parlay. So those are a couple things. And then we talked about Liberty, Texas State, and Boise State as kind of the 3 teams that we think could sneak their way in, finishing in the top 12 in the rankings and have a really good, either an undefeated or like a 1-loss record and get in. So those were the teams we kind of talked about there. So we got those ones for you. We got the boss man Jorge saying, what's up, guys? Thanks, Jorge, for bringing us on, moving the stew with JT Brew over to Fantasy and Frames. This is our first year on Fantasy and Frames. We're pumped to be here and bringing you gambling content all season long. So thanks for having us on. We're going to I got one more kind of crazy bet that's I found here on FanDuel. Let me see if I can pull it up and show you guys. If I can't find it, I know I have it written down, but I might just do that to make it a little bit faster and bring it up. So there's a dark horse bet on a FanDuel right now. You can bet to win the national title, a team to win the national title, and someone else to win the Heisman. And it doesn't have to be on the same team. It's got a big list. So go check it out. It's under the special bets. Here's the one I absolutely love. There's 2 of them I absolutely love, and they're long shots of all time long shots, Benny. You can take.
This is what I like about FanDuel, though. I mean, DraftKings is typically where I'm at, but FanDuel, you can find a gem every once in a while over there. They throw some crazy stuff out.
Absolutely, I agree. I'm the same thing. A lot of times I'm on DraftKings. That's where I put a lot of my normal bets in. But if you want to get something that's like way off the books, just crazy, I love the fact that FanDuel puts these on here. So right now on FanDuel, you can pick. It's a winner. It says national championship winner, Heisman winner. So you can find that on FanDuel. You can get Georgia to win the national title, Luther Burden from Missouri to win the Heisman, plus 23,000.
Whoa!
Plus 23,000. I have it on the screen. I said it's Luther Burden season. I am putting a million different bets on Luther Burden props this offseason. I love it. Georgia gets in. Georgia, Missouri
to get in there.
Georgia, Missouri end up, They don't play each other in the regular season. They end up making the playoffs. Like I said, if Luther Burden can put together some really nice games against the best competition, Missouri can go 10-2, 11-1, and he has a ton of highlights. He's going to be in the mix, especially because his name's out there as a high NFL draft pick. Now, I love Georgia to win it. The defense, they got Carson Beck, who's a lot of people's number one QB in the draft next year. Solid player. This team, they want revenge. They think they got screwed last year. They were like, we should have made the playoffs. We gotten screwed. This team is out for revenge, and we know their defense is going to be awesome. They've been awesome. Nothing but first rounders the last couple of years. So I love that. Now, to stick with it, I still have Luther Burden win the Heisman, but I have Ohio State winning the national title with Burden win the Heisman plus 30,000. Plus 30,000.
Man. I mean, Ohio State has players too.
Hey, I win this bet, Benny. I'm coming to Autotown and buying a new car. Coming to Autotown, 30 G's with me. Down. Buying a new car from Ben Dyer Autotown in Champaign, Illinois. I will come out there and I will buy a new car from you if I hit this $30,000 Ohio State Luther Burden.
I'm gonna put the bet in too, so I'll be.
We'll
both be celebrating.
He's like, I won 60 grand, basically. But check those bets out. Jump in there, see something you like. They had a bunch of different matchups you could do. A bunch of different players to win the Heisman with national championship winners. Those were two that stuck out to my mind. We obviously can't go through all of them because it would take us all night. But those were two I just absolutely loved. If I'm going to go long shot, I'm going to go long shot, and that was that. I got two teams favored to win the national title, but long shot and Luther Burden win the Heisman. So I absolutely loved that bet. So get in there, take a look at that. So Benny, it's that time. A lot of people asking because this is what a lot of people want to know. Preseason bet. They want to know over under wins, win total. Are you taking the over? Yeah. Are you taking the under on this team winning for the full season? Couple ones just kind of jumped out. There's a million out there. So go in there, do some research over the next couple of days. We're going to give you some of our favorites here kind of in this segment. So to kind of start things off here, and I'm going to stick with my trend. Missouri, 9.5 right now. Over under wins. Like I said, I think that they got 3 difficult games. I think they win everything else. They got 3 tough games. It's 9.5. I think they can win at least one of those 3 games. They're at Texas A&M as the toughie, at Alabama, and then home for Oklahoma, which a lot of trash talk between Oklahoma and Missouri fans in this offseason. A lot of trash talk.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a big game. It's sold out. It's going to be wild. I'm
Is that a home game?
Missouri.
That's in Missouri?
That's a game at Missouri. Oklahoma, It's going to be wild. I love that game. I think Missouri can get over 9.5. That's where I'm at right now. So I'm taking Missouri over the 9.5. I'm trying to pull up the odds. I think I got it at plus 135 when I jumped in, but I'm going to look real quick and see if I can remind myself. But it was definitely plus money, which I love to see that it was at plus money because I thought, a lot of people were saying 9-3, 10-2. So I jumped on the plus money there. Sorry, I'm checking the account right now. Where am we at?
I can see.
I get plus 135. So I get Missouri at plus 135 over 9.5 wins. They got 10-2. That is my pick as I am full bore Missouri this season. I love it. Benny, you got one that jumps out at you, somebody you like right now?
I do. I actually have a couple of unders. I don't like betting unders, but I got a couple of teams that I feel like their schedule's just stacked against them, and I just don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year. I got Michigan going under 9.5. I think they're going to have they're still going to be really good, don't get me wrong, but you lose your head coach, Harbaugh. You got a lot of your defense
back. Your running back.
Still going to be really tough.
You lose your quarterback.
Lose so much.
You lose your top wide receiver. You lose your 2 of your best.
And then how many guys transferred because a lot of guys left when Harbaugh left too. So and then the Big Ten it's a different animal now. You got Oregon in there, and I don't know. I don't think Michigan's going to be a 10 win team. And then my other one is LSU, and this is mostly I mean, I think they can still have a good season, but man, their schedule. If you look at the back half of their schedule, it's just bananas. I mean, they've got to play, one unbelievable team after another. So I got them under 9, and that was at even money at plus 100. So, and then I also read something like with Kelly Chip or not Chip Kelly, but they're
No, you got him. Chip
yeah.
Kelly is the man there
Oh,
now.
Chip is the man. Yeah.
Oh no,
So,
sorry.
no, it's
Sorry.
the guy
I'm totally
came
blowing
over from
that.
Notre
It's
Dame. Yeah. Why am I
Brian.
saying Kelly?
Why am I blanking? Brian. What's Brian's last name?
It's not Kelly, is it?
Brian Kelly. It is Brian Kelly.
So bad I am with it. Is Kelly. Yeah.
Yeah, it is Brian Kelly.
So that's why I had
we
Kelly
were
in my
right,
head.
Ben.
Yeah.
We were right there.
Yeah.
It is late.
Yeah.
It's
Well, we were
11:30
close.
Eastern time.
You
We
put
were
it
right
together.
there. It's on the tip of our tongue. It's on the tip of our tongue.
Yeah. So anyway, like there's some crazy stat with him in the last 3 seasons in like 3-point games or something like that. I can't remember the exact stat, but it was basically what it boiled down to is the odds of them winning as many games as they have in close games is like almost impossible. So there's got to be a little bit of a regression back to like normal. You know what I mean? So I just think that that there's between their schedule and Niemeyer's. I mean, he's touted. He's supposed to be really good, but I mean, I just think 9 wins with their schedules tough.
9 wins is tough, man, because that means they got to win 10. They can always 2.
Yep.
I don't think they have the craziest hardest schedule in the world, but they do got to play at Texas A&M, home against Bama, at Florida, who should be better, home against Oklahoma. They got USC to open the season, and they got Ole Miss, who's super improved. So again, even if they split those games, that's 4 losses. So you're right. I think LSU.
Yeah.
I like Garrett Nussmeier a ton at QB. I think he's super underrated.
Yep.
I think people are going to be blown away how good he is with the fact that he was backing up Daniel last year. I had friends calling for him to actually start over Daniel last season because they think he's that good. They think it's an Oklahoma situation where they just go one guy, the next guy that can win the Heisman. But I think you're right. I that LSU is 9.5 is a high number. I think they're in the mix. I picked them. We did a show on Fantasy and Frames where I picked them as they were one of the lower 20th ranked teams that I thought maybe could make the playoff, but they're gonna have to like put it together and put it together quickly. Again, they're replacing 3 first-rounders on offense, and they were not great on defense last year. So I agree with you. That one's a tough one.
It's the SEC is like, they've got all these great teams. There's going to be a few teams that aren't as good as people think, and there's going to be a few that are better than people think. And that's just the way the SEC. I mean, they just beat the heck out of each other, week in and week out. So it's just like who can, Georgia's going to pretty much do their thing. And like you said, with Missouri, I feel like their schedule is set up for them to potentially win those 10 games. So there's another team that's going to, if they win 10, they're probably in the playoff. So, I mean, you're not going to be able to put 5 teams in the playoff from SEC, So, I don't know, but that one kind of stood out. But those are my 2 total picks. I know, you've got a few more that look pretty good too.
We got a few more here. We got one question. Sports Addict Network asked NCAA futures Auburn over under 7.5 wins. He's got the over at plus 125. I actually had a friend, Kevin Coleman from Debbie Royale. He was liking Auburn as well. I was kind of looking at their schedule, kind of figure out, because again, it really becomes down to conference schedule. How tough is their schedule going to be? They were a much improved team last year. Here's the toughie for them right now. Alabama on the road. They're at home against A&M. They're on the road at Missouri, on the road at Georgia, home against Oklahoma. So those are the 5. So if they can somehow sneak one of those games out, the rest of their games are super winnable. I mean, they got Alabama, A&M, California, New Mexico, Arkansas. Those should be 4 sweeps. They should start 4-0. Now, the question is, do they lose 3 in a row against Oklahoma, Georgia, Missouri and get to 4-3? At Kentucky is a winnable game. Home versus Vanderbilt should be a win. Home versus Louisiana Monroe should be a win. And then finishing up the year at home against Texas A&M and then at Alabama. To me, I don't hate that bet. I feel like that bet's right on. I feel like that's the number.
Yep.
They feel like a 7-5, 8-4 team. If they can sneak out one of those games, which honestly, them at home against Texas A&M, Texas A&M is a team that has really fallen apart at the end of the year the last couple of years because they haven't been as good as they thought they were going to be, and they've melted down near the end of the year. So I actually don't. I kind of like that bet, Sports. Like over 7.5 wins at plus 125. You get the plus money on that.
Yeah,
if they can beat A&M, even if they lose to Missouri, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Alabama, they still get it. And I love their non-conference schedule. It's cake, absolute cake.
Yeah, they'll win all those games.
Another one, and Benny, this is right up your alley from what we were talking about earlier. Again, from the Sports Ad, he was asking about Boise State over 9.5 wins plus 100. We were looking at it.
I like it.
I think Oregon's the loss. If they can roll the Mountain West, they can go 11-1. The big question on that 9.5, because with Oregon, that's a loss to Oregon.
Here's the deal with this bet, though.
You'd hope they just lose one, right?
You could bet them to make the play. I think they could win their conference, end up with 2 losses, and still make the playoff. So I feel like if you don't think they're going to get to 10 wins, you might as well just bet them to make the playoff at plus 400. You know what I mean?
I agree, because if you think that they can win 11 and go 11-1 with the only loss being to Oregon, which is going to look good if they don't get absolutely crushed by like 50, if they can somehow be in that game, maybe you do just take them to make the playoffs at plus 400, Benny.
They could still screw around and lose one more, but I suppose if they're still going to cover the 9.5 too. So I mean, at even money, I just like Boise State this year, barring if their running back goes down, or they could have a tough time there. But man, they're tough. They're going to be good, and the Mountain West is not. They're going to be much better than everybody.
I think the Mountain West is a little shaky this year compared to past years. I really like the Mountain West. I think they were really good the last couple of years. I'm not sure about some of these teams this year. The one thing that does hurt me right here in the soul is Malachi Nelson did not win the quarterback job at Boise State. I have a ton of him in fantasy, C2C and CFF fantasy leagues. I thought he would win the job. He did not. Manson's going to be the guy, so we're going to see how that works out. But I don't know if you can get anybody to parlay this for you, but if you can parlay over 9.5 wins and make the playoffs for Boise State, I don't know if they'll let you parlay it, but if you could, I love plus 100, plus 400. That would be kind of sweet.
Probably wouldn't let you.
I'm guessing most people will not let you do that, but I do like your idea. If you think that they can win 10, there's a chance they could win 11 and go to 11-1. And if your only loss is against Oregon and you lose by 14 at Oregon or something, like you're gonna be looked at pretty positively, I would think, on that.
Yeah, and they're going to have to take at least 2 teams that aren't considered, Power 5 conference teams. I mean, the Mountain West, I would think if they had a team that was obviously the best team, won 11 games, they're going to get in the playoff, So, but to your point though, with the quarterback situation, I mean, if the starter ends up going down, they got a good backup. So
former number 1 player in the country 2 years ago, transferring from USC. He was supposed to be the heir apparent to Caleb Williams at USC, ended up transferring out and then didn't win the starting job. Hopefully it's one of those things where the coach is just trying to get his attention and be like, hey man, I need you to do more. Hopefully it's a situation but I really do like what Boise State's bringing this year. College fantasy, if you're not playing it, jump on Fantrax and play it. I'm all over Boise State in fantasy this year. Ashley Genty, a bunch of guys I'm all over. Since we're talking about the Mountain West, I had one other Mountain West team I liked the over, and that, of course, shocker. I know everyone's going to be surprised by this one. My San Diego State Aztecs, I like the over. Sean Lewis, I thought was an absolute home run hire after Brady Hoke retired. I love Sean Lewis coming over. He's an offensive coach. The Aztecs have really struggled under Brady Hoke to bring any kind of offense. They've really been a defense-minded team. They've run the ball really well, but they just haven't put up a lot of points. Lewis at Kent State went from a team that was averaging 12 points a game to 32 points a game when he was at Kent State. I love that. At Colorado, I don't know what happened there and that he left Colorado, but he got off to a great start at offensive coordinator there at Colorado last year. He's now the head coach at San Diego State. One of the big surprises that also came out this week. Everybody thought AJW was going to win the job, transfer from Florida State. Instead, the freshman Danny O'Neal named the starter this week.
Really?
I'm loving it. I had a million AJ Duffy, so that is a little problem. I did smart enough back myself and handcuff him with O'Neal in quite a few leagues. I think this offense is going to be much better. They've got a pretty nice group of running backs and wide receivers that kind of are unproven. They're 5.5 is the over-under. I think they can get to 6 to 8. I really do. I was looking through the schedule. Yeah. I think if they play as well as they can, I think they can be 8-4. But I think this team, even if they struggle a bit and they don't win some of the games that are kind of toss-ups, I still think this team can go 6-6 and make a bowl game.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's like I said, that conference besides Boise, I feel like is up for grabs. I mean, it's going to be 5 other teams that are going to be duking it out, and the team that wins the close games is going to get that extra win they need to get a bowl game, and that could definitely be San Diego State, 100%.
We'll stay. It's the Big Ten. You say like, oh, let's stay on the West Coast. Well, the West Coast is UCLA, but they're in the Big Ten country now. This I feel like is an absolute lock. I am all over this bet. UCLA over under 5.5. I am all over the under. Chip Kelly quits as a head coach to go take an offensive coordinator job at Ohio State. That says something. Coaches don't want to be offensive coordinators instead of head coaches. Believe me. But he left. Yeah. I think the dumpster fire is ready to just explode at UCLA. Dante Moore, the top recruit they had got in a long time, ended up turning around and transferring to Oregon as their quarterback. That situation was handled terribly last year. So now they got Gabbard starting at quarterback. This team going to the Big Ten schedule now, I don't like it at all. I was going through their schedule. There feels like almost no guaranteed wins on the schedule, and they feel like a minimum 7 or 8 loss team. I think this team goes, 3. I think this team goes, 3-9 or 4-8. I don't think there's any way they get to 6. If they get to 5, I think that they played well. Eric Bieniemy, I really like him as a coach. He's now the offensive coordinator. They've left him nothing to work with there. I just think UCLA gets punched in the mouth in the Big Ten, and I don't think there's any way this team gets to 6 wins.
Yeah, they're gonna. I'm with you. They're definitely gonna struggle a little bit, and Oregon proved last year that they can play with the big boys. I mean, they've got the big guys up front on defense as well, so I don't think it's gonna phase them one bit, but. UCLA is a little different story. They're I don't think they're going to be used to some of these defensive fronts that some of these teams are going to be bringing between Michigan State and Michigan and Iowa and just some of these defenses that they're not used to seeing. So they're gonna have a tough go, I think.
And UCLA won with defense last year, and they lost a ton. Yeah. I mean, obviously, the Latu, number 1 pick in the NFL draft for defensive player off the board in the first round. Yeah. Absolute stud. They lost a ton of other players on defense. I just think this is going to be a rough transition for UCLA. I'm all over the under. Let's stick to the Big Ten and take my my favorite team to always bet the under on lately. I feel like I've become the spokesman to hate this team, and that's Nebraska. I just don't believe in Nebraska. Matt Rule is there. I actually like him as a coach. I'm shocked at the love that they're getting this offseason. Like all of a sudden, they're going to be a good team. Now they got Dylan Royale. They got most people consider the top quarterback recruit in the country. He's still a true freshman. He still has to figure it out. In the Big Ten, I cannot. This was my pure 100% smash last year. I told people bet your house on the Nebraska under last year. They went out week 0 and lost to Northwestern in Ireland, and I was literally just up in the air. I was like, I thought that was a win. I gave that to Nebraska as a win, and I was still taking the under. I was like, oh, if they're losing to Northwestern week 1, I'm like, this is going to be a great bet. I think they were 8.5 last year. I don't know what they finished, but it was bad. It was like 4 or 5 wins. They were terrible. They're 7.5 right now. I don't see it. Somehow, now, here's the crazy thing is they have one of the easier schedules they've had in a while, and I still don't believe.
I think I think it actually has gotten bet up to 7.5 too, which is crazy. It started, I think it was like 6.5. It was lower. Now it's 7.5.
But everybody's loved them. That's what I'm telling you. It has blown my mind. And I'm pulling up the schedule right now so I can tell you guys. Well, they walk through the schedule with you.
They did rank out pretty good in defense, and I think they have a lot of guys back. But still, I don't see it either. I mean, they got
UTEP week 1. UTEP, that's a win. Everyone's calling Colorado week 2 a win. I'm like, Colorado smoked you guys last year. Smoked them last year, and everyone's like, "Oh, they're going to beat Colorado." I'm like, "Okay, I gotta think Colorado's going to win that game." Northern Iowa, all right, that's a win. They're home against Illinois. I don't think Illinois is going to be great this year, but Illinois could win that game. Illinois could win that game. If you had told me in the 90s that Illinois could win a game at Nebraska, I would have told you were a complete liar. But Illinois has actually played them really well the last couple of years. So that's a game that's a toss-up game for me. They're at Purdue. That's again a toss-up game. They probably should win. They got Rutgers at home. Rutgers is way better than people think. I think Rutgers ends up winning that game. Bye week at Indiana. That's another one they should win. So like I said, starting off the season, they have one of the easiest schedules ever, and I still taking the other. So if you look at, say they start undefeated there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's that 7 wins. It's 7.5. They just got to win one more at Ohio State. That's a loss. Home UCLA, I think they win. At USC, I think they lose. Home against Wisconsin, I think they lose. At Iowa, I think they lose. So this one is super close. And you know what it's going to come down to for me? I think it comes down to the Colorado game.
They're gonna
lose
one of those road games.
If they lose one of those games in the first 7, they're going to have to win at Iowa, at home against Wisconsin, or at USC to get to 8.
Yeah.
I just don't. They're going to trip up somewhere.
They're going to trip up somewhere.
It's going to be way closer than last year. Yeah.
You're going to lose one of those road games with a true freshman quarterback. There's just no, unless the kid's just an absolute one of a kind, which he could be. I don't know.
He's really good, but
I talking about him like
I'm not sure everybody that's around him is good enough. And I think Rutgers can beat them at home, and they got to start 7-0. They got to start 7-0. So again, the schedule's easy. So I see why people kind of looked at them like, oh yeah, they can get to 8, and I'm like, I just don't trust it.
If it was 6.5, I could see it for sure taking that over. But 7.5, man, they got to get to 8 wins.
8 wins, and like I said, even though the schedule's easy, there's no room for any error, no room for trip up there for them. I just don't like it. A couple more games here as we have passed the hour mark. We're going to try to finish this thing up here pretty quickly. Ben, I'm not usually an under guy, but man, I did like a lot of unders this year. So we stay in the Big Ten. Texas, 10.5. They've got a brutal schedule, and they can only lose one game and cover this. And I said Big Ten. I meant SEC. First time, I just don't see that happening with Texas. Can they go 11-1 now? Is it possible? Yes. I think they're going to go 11-1.
Playing in the SEC again, it's almost like the LSU thing. And now LSU schedule is not even as bad as Texas's, though. Texas, I think, is tougher even than LSU.
Yeah, so you bring up the Texas schedule. So they got Colorado State. That's a win to start off. They're at Michigan. That's a game they can win, but that's a tough game at the Big House. At the Big House, defending national champs, that's a tough one. UTSA, that's a win. Louisiana Monroe, that's a win. Mississippi State, it's a win. Bye week, so easily 4-1 or 5-0 to start the year. All right, I'll give them that 4-1, 5 to start the year. At Oklahoma, home for Georgia. At Vandy's a cakewalk. Home for Florida, who will be better. at Arkansas, which should be a cakewalk, home for Kentucky, which is a game you would think they would smoke them, and then at A&M. So again, not the craziest hard schedule in the world, but that means they can only lose one game all year. You got Michigan, Georgia, Oklahoma, Texas A&M. They got to win 3 out of those 4. 3 out of 4 to get to 11. That's where I mean, I think Texas is good. I think Texas is going to be in the mix, but man, it's so tough to take when you're like, oh, they can only lose one game all year.
Especially now where you feel like you could lose 2 games and still make the playoff. So it's not like before where it's like we can't lose. You know what I mean? It's almost like, I'm not saying teams aren't going to probably think about it that way, but that's just human nature. It's like, you know, we're not out of it.
We're not out of it. 10-2, we're still in it. Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm with you, man.
I think Texas is good. So don't, Texas people out there, don't think I'm a Texas hater. Man, when you can only lose one,
they're going to be good.
When you can only lose one as a better, that makes me real nervous. Sports Addict coming with us again, bringing us the knowledge. FanDuel has Nebraska right now at under 7.5 at plus 118. Fanatics has them at under 7.5 at minus 105. So definitely jump on that FanDuel at plus 118. I like the plus money at under 7.5. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I love that. Just a couple more here that jumped out to me. One that my friend, like I said, Kevin brought to my attention. And I really think this is a good bet. And it's Louisville under 8.5. Louisville was a surprise team last year. I think Jeff Brom's a really good coach. They lost a ton of players. The schedule kind of worked out. Their defense was lights out last year. I mean, their defense was in the top 5 or 10 in the country in a ton of categories. They've lost some players. The schedule's tougher. They're starting a brand new quarterback in his 7th year of college. It's crazy to think that that's allowed. Ben, I wish we could have gone to college for 7 years and no one would have looked at us funny. That would have been phenomenal. But, I mean, you're saying this team's got to go 9-3.
Stuck it out, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you got to go 9-3 here. I'm going to pull up Louisville's schedule. Again, I don't think they're a bad team by any means. I just don't like where that's at. I mean, that's giving them very, very little room for error. And they're just, it's just tough because, I mean, Brandon Shell's their quarterback this year. He was just.
Where'd he come from?
He came from Texas Tech.
Okay.
He's been injured his whole career. He's never thrown for more than 1,500 yards. And now you're going to tell me this is the year he's going to pull it together and be a really good quarterback. I just don't know if I believe it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I just don't know if I believe it. And so that's the problem. And this team lived and died on the defense last year, and they lost some guys. So, again, not the craziest, hardest schedule. The ACC is really up for grabs, but they got to win against an improved Georgia Tech team at home. They're at Notre Dame. I would call that a loss. They're home against SMU. That's going to be close. SMU might be favored there. They're at Virginia, home for Miami, at Boston College, at Clemson, home for at Stanford, home for Pittsburgh, at Kentucky. I think that Kentucky game is going to be super close. I think at Clemson is a loss. Be better too. I think Miami is a loss. So I think Notre Dame's a loss. So if you get Notre Dame, Clemson, and Miami losses, that's 3 right there. That's 9-3. They have to win every other game. That means they have to beat Georgia Tech, have to beat SMU, have to beat Pittsburgh, have to beat Kentucky. It's close for me. I feel like this is a great line. 7.5. I feel like 8.5 is right there. I just think this team ends up going. I think they end up at 7 or 8. They have no room for error at 8.5 to get to 9-3, and that's why I'm taking the under on Louisville.
Yeah, and I think the books tend to lean towards knowing most people are going to bet overs on these totals, especially if Louisville's your team. You know, we do it. I do it. You know, it's like you want to have faith in your team, so they're going to get a lot of bets. There's a lot of Louisville fans out there. They're going to be betting this over. They know it. They put the hook on there, but I'm with you. I think probably best case scenario 8 is probably more realistic for them.
I mean, they're going to have a good QB play. And I like Braun as a coach. I actually think he's a really great coach. I just don't trust their quarterback. I think the team is solid, but I just don't trust the quarterback to get to 9 wins. All right, we are over an hour here, about hour 15, so running a bit over time. Real quick, Benny, let's run through the week 0 games. So week 0 games this Saturday. There's only 4 of them. There was a bunch last year, only a couple this year. Let's throw out kind of just our couple quick ones we like here. So the games are Florida State -11 against Georgia Tech in Ireland. We got Montana -11 at Montana State, -11 at home against New Mexico. SMU -25.5 at Nevada, and Hawaii -38.5 versus Delaware State. Let's hit through these quick. Any of these ones stand out to you? Anyone you're taking, or are you avoiding?
Well, we're taking that Hawaii over, or at least the team total over. That's just tradition. Whether it's actually going to hit or not, I don't know. But that's what we do because it's the last game of the night, and that's just fun bet. I mean, these are tough ones for week 1 because they're not really teams, that I could see SMU rolling.
So
I could see them.
I hear you there. Nevada was terrible last year. They're 2-10. They're usually not this bad. I think Preston Stone wants to get off to a good start. On the road has me a little nervous. On the
elevation
road
there in Nevada,
25.5. But if I'm jumping on 2 games this week, if I'm like, you got the itch and the preseason bets aren't enough for you, you want that live action. I'm getting on a 2-team parlay.
That's probably what I'll do is bet it live.
SMU 25.5, Hawaii -38.5. Delaware State is a terrible FCS team. They were 1-11, 1-10 last year. They're just notoriously one of the bottom feeders in the league. Hawaii, I think, is solid. They're not the old Hawaii that we used to love. Those Rainbow Warriors always saving us late on Saturday nights, but I think they have enough firepower to put this one under. I think they win 38. I think they cover that 38.5. And SMU at Nevada, I like SMU. I think their quarterback is really good. I like Preston Stone a lot. I think SMU, they really push to get in the new conference. I think they want to prove that they belong. They should blow out a team like this. Those are 2 teams I think will absolutely run it up if they get the chance. I don't think they're going to slow down. So those are the ones I like. Florida State, I'm not in love with Florida State. I actually think Georgia Tech keeps it close. If I had to, I'm staying off that game. But if I had to, I'm probably taking Georgia Tech to cover. And I'd wait to see if it pushes high, like maybe up to 13 before the game starts. Then maybe take Georgia Tech. I don't love it either way. And then the Montana State game is just wild. Montana State, the old 1AA, they're a top 4 team. You almost never see those teams favored against, the upper echelon teams. But New Mexico, they've been bad. New head coach. I think they're going to be improved. It's -11. I think that's going to be a good game. I think Montana State pulls that out. But man, -11 seems like a lot to me. It really seems like a lot. So I just don't trust New Mexico enough with a new head coach.
A road game.
Road game at New Mexico. Yeah, so that one's a toughie. So I'm probably avoiding that game.
I'd take the points if anything.
Yeah, it's a tough. I like New Mexico's quarterback. Don't get me wrong, I got him in a lot of places. But I just it's tough there. I don't love it. So if I'm going anywhere on this week, I'm going Hawaii and I'm going SMU to cover. Ben, are you on the same boat there?
I'm pretty much, I'm with you. If anything, I haven't looked at it, but I think you could look at Hawaii's team total over. I think that could go to whatever, because like you said, if they get rolling, they're just gonna keep rolling. It's week 1, they're gonna roll. So
it's moving up. He's got Delaware State now at 39.5. So you better get in there soon. It's gonna be over 40 before we know it. But they're just tend to be just a bottom feeder program. Hawaii at home in the opener, I think, is going to be good. I like their passing attack. So Those are the ones there. So that's going to do it for us here as we've run a little long here. Make sure to check out us all season long. We will be here Tuesday nights, most likely 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock Central Time. Ran a little late on the hockey podcast tonight, but we'll be here usually between 9 and 10 Central Time. Check me out at JT Orange. You'll find my JT Parlays, plays of the day. Also, if there's bets that we don't put in the show that we like later on in the week, we will post those to our X page. So make sure to check that out. You can see, check him out at Ben Dyer 8 there at Twitter as well. Ben, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks,
it's here,
man.
baby.
Here we are.
It's here, baby. College football season is back. We're ready to go. So I appreciate everybody joining us here as our new home for the Stew with JT Brew on Fantasy and Frames. Make sure to check us out Tuesday nights and then Wednesday nights, all kinds of block of action on Fantasy Frames all night long. So make sure to head over there, like and subscribe so you know when the shows are coming on. And as always, may the trades never quit. And may all those bets hit. We'll see you next time.